allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first thing on our agenda is public comment. Mr. Chidester, I believe you signed up.
Am I on? Okay. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Brian Chidester. I'm the Vice President of the Bristol Warren Education Association, and I just wanted to take this moment and this public forum to say that the Bristol Warren Education Association is looking forward to the upcoming school committee election, and we actually are considering screening candidates to support in this election. So I simply wanted to say if there's anybody who is interested in running, who has declared their candidacy for the upcoming school committee election and would like to seek the support of the BWEA, please contact me directly. You can contact me through my email address, bwearivicepresident@gmail.com, or through our Twitter account, which hopefully everybody is following. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is the presentation.
Marge, may I interrupt?
Yeah.
May I make a quick statement, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I just wanted to take a brief moment and wish Happy New Year or Shana Tova to those of us that are members of the Jewish community. Give you a little mini history lesson. It's basically Jewish New Year. And unlike the Gregorian or the Western calendar, Rosh Hashanah is a quieter, kind of more reflective holiday full of contemplation that culminates on Yom Kippur, which this year is on October the 5th. I lost my spot. It's been a long day. These are the two most significant holidays within the Hebrew calendar, akin to Christmas and Easter. While I could have chosen to stay home and celebrate with my family, the business and functioning of our district would have continued and gone on without me. I wouldn't have been able to vote or have my opinions heard. This is exactly what happens with our students and our teachers. While your absence is excused, school goes on without you. And those are a tough push and pull, would require makeup, missing out on other school events and the like. So I'm hoping in this new year that we have an opportunity to move forward and begin to celebrate and honor the major holidays for all of our religious communities within the district and town. And thank you again, and Happy New Year to, and Shana Tova to our Jewish families. Thank you.
The next thing on our agenda is a presentation of our audit report for 2021. Please.
Madam Chair, just a quick introduction. We have with us this evening Mr. Kyle Connors. He is the lead on our audit team from Markham Associates, and he has a PowerPoint for you. Thank you for coming out this
Welcome.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm going to adjust this up a little. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I'm so accustomed to having these meetings over Zoom nowadays. It's really great to be in person and make eye contact with everyone instead of trying to stare at all the different screens. So we're going to discuss the 2021 financial statement audit of the district, which we issued the financial statements related to in May, and then the uniform guidance report, I want to say it was in June. So a little bit later than what we would have anticipated, but I want to kind of walk you through how that process worked, why it was beyond the 12/31 due date that is set forth by the state. So I want to start by saying that if you were to read through the financial statements, you'd see we've issued a clean opinion. When we took over the audit, this is our first year working with the district, and when Tony took his position, or became the finance director, there was really, I guess for lack of a better term, a rat's nest to deal with, of trying to unravel some of the 2020 financial statement information and some of the 2021 as well. A lot of times in situations like that, we as the auditors are asked to step in and perform out-of-scope procedures that would inevitably cost the district more than what the audit fee was proposed. I just want to note that didn't really happen this year. It took us some time to be able to come in and do our work, but Tony really took it upon himself and with his finance team to have all the documentation accurate and available for us when we did begin the audit procedures, which I think is a credit to him and the hard work that he and his team put in. We also, along the way, were working with the town of Bristol in order to get them a draft of the financial statements so that they could issue their own, as the district is a component unit of theirs. So we were in very fluid communication with the town and their finance director to make sure they had everything that they needed. So the audit was issued a little bit later than what was probably anticipated by the district. There was a lot of positive that came out of it. Certainly feel free to ask questions at any time as I go through this. So if we look at the district's general fund, overall the fund balance increased by about $279,000 over the prior year. There are two different categories that I think are important to bring to your attention. It's the unassigned fund balance, which at year end is $1.6 million, and then funds that are committed for future costs at year end of about $2.2 million. The unassigned fund balance represents just under 3% of your operating budget, and when you combine the two together, they represent about 6.8% of your operating budget. Now, if the district was a tax administering entity, I would say anywhere between 8 and 16% is a healthy place to be for fund balance percentage. Obviously, you are not a tax assessing district in that you're receiving funds from the town of Warren and from Bristol, as well as obviously intergovernmental revenue. But it's a relatively healthy place to be as far as where you want your fund balance. And I think if we look at the next slide, you can see how it's changed over the course of the last 5 years. So that red and blue portion represents the assigned and committed, or I'm sorry, unassigned and committed. And then you can see the total has grown steadily since, I can't read that, but I think it's 2019. 2017, I'm sorry. So when we look at your budget versus actual, the first thing that stands out is that your revenue was favorable and above what we had budgeted by $100 million. And as we drilled down into it, the majority of that was intergovernmental revenue that was received by the state. We looked at the budget and we sat and kind of asked why the district received more than they had budgeted, and it was just the prior financial administration had underestimated what the state was going to provide during 2021. So you actually received a little over $1 million more than what was budgeted. And then looking on the expenditure side for the general fund, overall, there was savings of $477,000, which was a combination and split pretty evenly amongst fringe benefits, professional services, and supplies and materials. District participates in some pension funds, and if you pension plans, if you look at the government-wide financial statements, you can see there's a net pension liability of just over $50 million. What's unique about the district is they don't have their own single employer entity plan. All plans are the state plans. So you have the MERS, which is your general employees, the teacher retirement plan, and then the teacher survivor benefit. And if you wanted to fund those to be at a higher level than what they're at, so like the general plan is at nearly 70%. If you wanted to give a higher portion than what you would each year to have that number go up, you wouldn't be able to. The state is giving you the amount of money you need to pay each year. And if you look back dating all the way to 2014, you've not missed a payment. You've paid in full every year. And so combined, all the communities that take part in these state plans fund it together, and this is what it's funded at. What you do have, though, is an OPEB plan, which is your other post-employment benefit. It's healthcare that's offered to retirees. And you treat that as a pay-as-you-go option, which I think a lot of school districts do, depending on whether the census data is required to go on to Medicare after they turn 67, which I believe is the case here. So funding your OPEB with a trust fund isn't necessarily required. That balance of what is owed has dropped from $20.4 million in 2017 down to about 15.5 as reported in the 2021 financial statements. So a few findings and recommendations. Obviously, we don't get to a May issuance date without a little bit of heartache or some root cause and issues that occurred. We did note that if you were to read through the financial statements and the notes, we have a restatement on some of the balances at 2020 in order to make it correct so that we could properly audit 2021, specifically related to capital assets that needed to be accrued that weren't in 2020, and then some general restatements on various asset and liability accounts within the general fund. These next two slides are probably two of the more critical to just talk about. I know that Tony has done a good job with the finance team and Anna as well, implementing procedures to prevent this from happening in the future. But part of a very large part of the audit and what we do, obviously we're looking at the financial data. I mean, that's a piece of it, and you're getting your financial statements and you're seeing that. The other piece is really our review of your internal control structures as it relates to cash receipts, cash disbursements, payroll, monthly and year-end financial closing, amongst a few other transaction cycles, and reviewing them and seeing, okay, is there an opportunity where someone has too much responsibility? They have an opportunity to commit fraud or misappropriate assets without it being caught. And so as we reviewed a few of these transaction cycles, specifically cash receipts and gate receipts, as well as cash disbursements, there was not an appropriate structure in place that could prevent, detect, and identify fraud. So we reviewed that immediately with Tony. I know that if you were to read the financials, you'd see, okay, well, it took until May for them to issue them. We had those discussions the moment we found them as we were performing our planning portion of the audit. And I know that changes were made immediately. Those changes were made a lot sooner than the audit ended up being issued. And then the second piece is also critical, especially as you hear more and more news about certain financial reporting somewhere and systems being locked and data being locked. So there's a couple of things here. First one is we recommend formal policy and also education and training for employees on a yearly basis. A lot of times if you have cybersecurity insurance, you can work with that company and they'll provide a training to staff who can take it, anywhere from a half hour to an hour long, just to provide them with some information on what to look for. We think that's critical. The second piece, as it relates to information technology, is within your own financial system, and this kind of links back to the segregation of duties. Does the payroll person also have access to accounts payable or to cash receipts? Or does the payroll person just have access to payroll within the financial reporting system? We think it's critical that if with the right control structure in place, that people only have access to the areas that they need to work in and can't alter other areas. And then on top of that, certainly when employees are either terminated or they retire or leave, is there a formal system in place to remove them from the financial reporting system? Basically immediate. Is there a checklist? What's the process? There wasn't anything formal, so that's something we're recommending as well. And then lastly, every year the district receives federal funding, and we pick different programs and we test it to make sure the funds were spent correctly, they were spent timely, they were drawn down from their respective grantor appropriately. And so I'm happy to say that we selected two programs, the Child Nutrition Cluster and then coronavirus relief funds that were received for the first time this year by the district, and happy to report compliance with regard to the programs. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, I have a couple for Tony. So thank you very much. This isn't as I was afraid it was going to be, but it wasn't great either. It's the first time we've had findings in a long time, but we're on the road to recovery. So I'm glad with that.
And the point is not necessarily to stop the risk, but provide constructive feedback that can be used to improve the control structure more than anything.
Okay, so I'll start with you, Sheila.
Okay, thanks. Sorry if I'm yelling. I have a double ear infection, so we can't really hear. So with all the findings, do we have processes in place to kind of combat these findings, to change them, and how long will it take? Because I know it's not a quick process, and I know that we have staffing issues, and I know it's just not an overnight flip the switch. So I just want to, this is stuff you inherited, so I just want to make sure that's clear too.
Fully understand. First, I want to thank Kyle and his team. They did an excellent
definitely.
job.
Thank you for
Appreciate
your help.
that. So
Thank you.
we look forward to working with them again this year. The points that were raised, the only thing I need to mention is that I have been raising this alarm We did bring it to the Budget and Finance Committee and discuss the issues. We had to develop an action plan that was submitted to the federal government as well, because we're required to supply this audit to the feds. Contrary to what Kyle thinks we are, we're not that far along in the implementation of the new procedures. And clearly, it's one of the results of the elimination of positions and then the turnover. And so when folks left and people absorbed their jobs, the pieces that they picked up were some of the separations of activities. So who receives the cash, who posts the accounts receivable, and then who goes to the bank. Well, when you had two people and you split it and one person left and now you were down to one. My administrative assistant really didn't get settled in until April, May this year. So even by identifying them early, we weren't able to implement the changes that need to take place. So we're working on it. And I've already put a notice out on our action plan that I would suspect we're going to have the same identified items for the FY22, because it's the tail end of 22 and coming into 23 when they'll be in place. But if he's looking at all of last year, a lot of the bulk of the activity was still in place through at least January, February.
And you're still short-staffed, right? You're
Yes. Yes, I've been fully staffed, and well, I'm not fully staffed. We're still looking for an accounting manager, but at least the administrative assistant's in place, and we're able to start separating some of the tasks.
Okay. Thanks for your effort.
Anybody here? Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice, thank you so much. Unless I have other jobs,
Correct. That's right.
all right, moving on, the next thing on our agenda is the consent agenda. And I'm to let you know that I'm removing the minutes of the workshop for the next meeting because we need to make some changes. So the only things left under the consent agenda are the homeschool requests and the data manager contract. And I need a motion to accept.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and I believe that Superintendent Riley would like to say something.
Absolutely. So tonight we only had one appointment on the list. And so we are really excited. And Rose, I'm calling it the wrong name, data manager. Yes, we have our new data manager, Austin Medeiros, who has already been working in the tech department for 2 years, is being promoted to data manager. So we're really excited to have one of our own who's going to grow into the role. And now we will have to backfill Austin's position. But we're excited about him taking on this new challenge. Thank you all. I know Austin is here. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a statement. It's a pleasure, Hannah, to have a person like yourself hiring people from within and giving them the opportunity to advance in this district. Thank you very much.
I think it's important that we grow our own.
Yes.
Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is the FY23 Capital Facilities Report. Mr. Ferrucci? Yes, I have it here, but I don't know who wishes to comment on it.
Mr. Caleri?
Yes, I'll take that, thank you. So if you take a look real quick, I did put a little something here together. Some of this might look very familiar to you. I do apologize for just being a little bit new. I know I kind of jumped into this and I rearranged this from what you guys are probably used to, just to make it a little more flowing and a little more easier to read. So that being said, we'll just start at the top and I'll work my way down. All right. So the project report is separated into two sections. Top section being predominantly the security upgrades grouping, and that will include between the vestibule hardening and also all of our security upgrades as well. As you can see at the top, we haven't started construction yet on the with this. We'll be moving into construction very, very soon, probably in the next few weeks. So, and starting at first, actually. But as you can see, look at the second to last column, so moving down, emergency towers and the LED lights at Gutierrez. So the emergency towers I'll be having this week. They'll start digging and pouring the foundations for that's the blue light security towers for those of you who weren't familiar with that. As for the LED lights at Gutierrez, so that will be going up, a single pole will be going up Wednesday. And the reason why it's a single pole is that we are awaiting Historical Society approval on this. They asked if we'd put one unit up so that they could physically go down to the site and take a look at how these very low profile, virtually invisible lights will look from the road. As I did state to them, if you can see them from the road, then your eyesight's better than mine, and mine's 20/10, so good for you. But they are very, for those of you who don't know, they are very low profile. The poles themselves are only about 4 inches wide. They are 18 feet tall. However, the actual light is only 2.5 feet long with a 4-inch profile. So that's why I say it's going to be very difficult to see these. And they put off a lot of light. 5,000, 8,000 lumens is quite a bit. So it will provide the safe and adequate lighting for that parking lot for not only the public, but also our personnel that work there late at night, which I've also experienced in the dark during several storms already. So I'm actually looking forward to having them there. But so as of Wednesday, once they see it, and I'm sure they probably will approve it, I can notify their admin, and they said within a week they'll have their meeting set, and you can just give it the blessing right on site. They're going to actually hold the meeting on site. So we get the blessing right then and there, and I will have the construction guys ready to go the next day. So I want to get them all. Questions?
Yeah.
I see you, Vic.
What time do the lights come on and what time do the lights go off?
Well, the nice thing about them is that they're completely programmable individually. So even if you only wanted so many of them on, I don't see why you would, but even if you wanted them individually at different times, you can pull them on anytime you want.
Right, but they're not motion sensor, right?
No.
Okay, good.
But they are available. I mean, the public sometimes uses the field behind there, and they are available to the public if there's an emergency, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if you're in reference to the emergency lights as well, those are fantastic because they really are there for everyone, not just the students, not just the teachers, but the public as well. If anyone has any kind of emergency or a situation, it's just a quick ring. And it's an automatic. It's not a, let me sit there and for lack of a better example, while I'm having a heart attack trying to breathe into and speak into the phone at the same time. It's an automatic alert to emergency services. It's just literally hit the button.
Okay.
It's instant.
All right, thank you.
Where are you locating this?
Which one? It depends on which
Gutierrez.
school.
At Guitarist.
At Gutierrez. So if you go into the rear of the building, but the forward portion of the baseball field, just in front of the baseball field, there's a small inlet that comes, an island that comes out right on that island. It'll be, so it's easily accessed from the baseball field or vice versa, or anyone in the playground or anything to that effect. They can easily get to it very, very fast. Any other questions?
I have a question, and then I'll the generator. Do we have the generator for our security yet? For our
No, we're waiting. We're applying for emergency approval from RIDE for that, so that's not.
Oh, I will get to the generator. That's down at the bottom. I did put them on there.
I wasn't sure if that one was for.
Not for Gutierrez. I'll go through them, but one's for the high school, and then I was looking at possibly two for KNS.
I'm talking about the one that services our databases.
That's at the middle school.
That's the one at KMS. Yeah, I will. I promise. I will get to it.
Okay,
It's just
thank you.
down a little bit further.
Nikki had a question.
Hi, thank you. My question was about the visitor entry system, because it says 100% completed, but isn't that the one we're voting on tonight?
Yes, that's not completed.
Which one is this?
Visitor entry system.
This one.
It's 3, 4 from
Three
the
up from
bottom
the
on the
bottom.
Oh,
top.
I'm sorry. Yes, no, that one is being voted on tonight. I apologize. I missed that.
Yeah, you can see accrual paid is not, it's $0. We haven't done anything.
Yeah, I didn't have.
Got it. So is that also true for the others that are $0? Because they say 100% complete, but if it's $0 there, can we presume that it hasn't been?
If it says 100% complete, some of them have construction actually put into play, but then if there's nothing paid into them, then no, they're not. I apologize. I'm gonna have to adjust the formula on that one.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't two different
Oh, no.
things with exactly the same price point.
I was writing quite a few formulas on that page.
No, great. Thank you. That clarifies.
Moving down to the bottom after the second part of the project report. Let's see, which one did I want to go to? So I know the boys' locker room, shower ADA, I really do need to look into that a little bit more. I know that's supposedly in the 5-year plan, which will have to be restructured. There's definitely some things that need to be looked at in there, make sure that it's adequate for what we're actually looking for, and obviously resubmit it to you guys for approval as well. The replace RTU HVAC, that's over at KMS. So that was 4 RTU standing for rooftop units. That was basically getting ready for our heating system. The submittals were signed this morning and submitted back to them, so they'll be on order. They're about 28 weeks out, unfortunately. There is a very long lead time on that logistics side.
Right in time for summer. Perfect.
Yeah, I know. I do apologize for that, but unfortunately, a lot of pieces of equipment versus materials and everything, the logistics in this country is just not what it used to be. And unfortunately, not unlike our issue this morning, trying to look for lime for some filters. 17 stores and couldn't find limestone for filters. Yeah, it was something. Anyways, moving on. Retractable bleachers. So right now it's only at 30%. There was a little hiccup over the weekend, just being that there was a quick stoppage, but we're back in play. They'll be back in play tomorrow morning. So in fact, it had something to do with essentially they said that the town of Warren decided that they required a permit for it. I did sit and talk with the building inspector. He showed me the situation. I said, that's fine. I wasn't aware that bleachers needed that, but I do apologize. I kind of walked into that one, and I should have checked. However, I was able to attain a permit over the weekend, and I'll have one printed on the wall tomorrow morning. Let's see, moving on. The regrade, repair concrete walkways and the A&E fees that associate with them, that's essentially all complete at this point. I know there was some questions about some of the drainage areas and stuff, and the answer to the questions that came up about was the drainage situation addressed. It was addressed, and I actually witnessed it as well, that it actually operates properly. So that is in play. Moving on, exterior door replacements over at Colt, ceiling paint. These were all the repairs that were going on in the theater. I should say, you'll have to excuse me. Is that a theater or auditorium?
Both.
It's both? Okay. I'm not sure how it was responded to. So I will get familiar with it, I promise. But those repairs were taken care of and done. Roof replacement. I know This has been a subject of interest with a lot of people. So we are at 90% right now on the roof replacement at Gutierrez. The primary portion of the double layer roof is done. However, we are waiting on materials right now. We are kind of paused right now for at least, I'm saying 5 weeks, I'm hoping 4. But this is for the collar that will be going around, which is the aluminum collar that goes around the entire rail. There was a question of color, which the color actually results to pewter. And the reason for the color choice was in conjunction with the Historical Society. They wanted a color that would match the outside of the building. So that's why there was a little, I guess, give and take between the architects and the contractors. But that was taken care of and resolved, and it's on order, and it'll be on its way in. And that will finish up the remainder of that project. Moving on. Okay, so if you look down more towards the bottom where it starts saying the roof replacement, bathroom modifications, and replacement of paving, these were all design only portions that were awarded to our architects. This was just an investigation, so these have been completed and will be in review. I did want to make the note that for the roof replacement, I was able to sit with them today, actually, and talk about possible options that we had. If we do look into replacement, I put in the notes section there that the resulting replacement for the roofing at Hugh Cole will be in the range of 2.2 to 2.4 million.
I have a question on that.
I kind of figured as much.
The roof on the addition's 10 years old, maybe 15 max. It's the old part of Hugh Cole that needs
Yes,
the roof,
it's
I
the older
assume.
ones, not the new membrane that was put on. That's still got at least another 10, 15 years.
Well, I
on
would,
it.
I would hope so.
Yeah. But the 2 sections that are being discussed here, the opposite end and the music area, music room, I think that it was labeled as. I guess there was 2 sections that kind
There's
of.
a library that has.
In the library, yeah. So those are the 2 areas that
2 million for that.
come to.
Gracious me.
But the good thing about it is that it's a 40-year roof when it goes on, so it won't have to be looked at really for some time. I mean, there'll be general maintenance and repairs along the way, but it is a 40-year roof as opposed to the roofs that were put on prior, which were substantially less.
25-year roof.
Yeah. 25 is not a standard anymore in the industry. 25 is actually quite poor. Typical standard in the industry now is 40 years. So, just technology changes. And then below that, I kind of put in there just as estimates, basically. So this goes into what we'll be going after emergency funding. This is to your comment about the emergency generator. So at KMS, the emergency generator is actually a 2-part. It'll be what I'm looking to get there is a 100 kVA and a 25 as well. The 25 will be for the data center, which will be a strict isolated system just for them. So this way, God forbid something happens there, the entire district does not go down. And that will be separate of the actual building unit as well. However, we're going to do a conjoined transfer that will be able to have the building be taken care of by the 110, as well as the data center. And then if something happened to that, the 25 would be there as well to keep it backed up as well. So the data center will not go down no matter what.
I'm just curious
Sure.
as to why we need to have an emergency generator for the building. I know why we need it for the work in IT, but why do we need it for the building?
So it's way beyond its lifespan. It's also inadequate for the building itself. There's been additions onto the building, there's been extensions.
It's for emergency lighting, Marge, so if the building were to lose power, we have to have emergency lighting. It's one of the things that the building inspector talked to us about, both here at the high school and at KMS.
So our exit signs don't automatically light if the power goes
Not if
out?
the
Are you
generator
correct?
doesn't work.
That's not emergency,
I mean,
so exit signs like that
Oh, yeah.
is not considered emergency lighting. So if I was to cut the power in this room right now, a certain number of lights in this room have to still be lit to be considered emergency lighting. So this way, God forbid something happened, we all could find our way to the exit. Just because there's an exit sign there does not mean that you'd be able to traverse whatever was in the room safely to get to that exit. It's NFPA code, it's National Fire Code. You
No,
have to
I
have that.
understand
Oh, no,
that,
I-
but could we, is it possible to combine that and perhaps have a little larger generator for IT, which would then cover that? Instead of having a whole building generator for emergency lights?
I could have another evaluation done.
I'm just because we don't, the children leave and then if the building's used, it's used by the town, not by us.
You're saying as a shelter?
And the same at Mount Hope High School.
Okay, I can look into it.
Just, I
Definitely
mean,
no, it's definitely something to look into.
just a thought, because I don't know what they have. I remember there was an issue with plugs, but it's been too long for me to remember exactly what it was. But but both towns use those buildings. So I think that we should
I can
be,
speak with town administrators and managers to see.
I think that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're very welcome.
I have a question about that, if that's okay. So I know that in the past, if there's been like a power outage in town, because of that generator at KMS, there's just a very small portion of the school where students need to go to until parents can pick them up
Mhm.
or whatever decision is made. So this will, I'm guessing,
This will cover the whole school.
cover the whole school. But so how do we think about that in terms of time frame? Like, with a new generator that has that kind of capacity, can children stay in school? Or is there still
No,
like
I
a
understand what you
1
mean.
hour or 2 hour, or
Took me a
how does
second.
that work?
So that's based upon the amount of fuel that's in there. It's not, it doesn't work the same way as you would think, oh, okay, so it's a higher KVA, so there's more power to go around. It's still going to run on fuel. So it comes down to the amount of fuel that you have set aside for it. The tanks are standard on emergency generators. They're only
And typically,
made
they
for,
don't recommend that we keep students in when we only have emergency lighting. So the
So the-
generator wouldn't provide all of our lighting.
No,
There's
no,
only
no.
enough
I
power
mean, you
for
could, if
emergency
you got a
lighting.
large enough one, you could get like a 350 KVA and that would power the entire
We're not doing
school.
that.
But the benefit is that children won't have to, like, all the students won't have to be shoved into one room for
No,
that 2
no, no,
hours
no,
it takes
no,
for
not
parents
at
to
all.
come back.
No,
Okay.
we'll have to look at that. That shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, I just mean, I'm just trying to figure out, like, will this new generator, it sounds like it will cover more of the school.
It'll cover all extent, so it'll cover
The
all
one we have
extensions.
currently does not, right?
I'm sorry, no, currently it doesn't
Okay,
cover
that's
the
all
whole
I'm
school.
saying. So
Yeah, no.
children had to be
It'll cover
put
the
in one
school, and then
spot.
also if
Or
you
a
put
few.
any additions on in the future, it'll very minimal growth, but just in case you do decide on growth at a further date, it will at least cover fire code for the time being.
Okay.
Until, it'll be grandfathered in too, because once it's installed, it's grandfathered. That was why we were able to operate on 60 KVAs for so long, is because they were completely grandfathered in.
Ah, all right.
And unfortunately, we ran into the same situation here in this building, where several buildings weren't even put on the emergency system, which was discovered. So I have that being tied in this weekend. And we were given basically an order that the generator here in this building has no choice. We have to replace it. It's no longer at a point where the building inspector is comfortable with allowing it. in fact, I had to make an agreement with them that we were to essentially test run it every single week with a logbook, logging every bit of information on it, just to prove to him that we're on top of this. We're going to keep on it until we get some sort of replacement in here. So it allowed us to open on day one and keep on going.
You had a question?
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
All right. Do our other schools have generators?
Yes,
And they all do the same thing? It's an emergency generator?
as of right
And
now,
they're all functioning with no problem?
yes, no problems.
The other question I have, is Hugh Cole School, the back of it, the asphalt back there, have we replaced that? Or, I mean, I see a $200,000 budget here, and then I see $11,000.
That's just for
That
design.
was design, right?
That was, so no, I know what you're looking at. So I looked at the 250,000 budget, and I am still looking into why was such a large budget proposed and only 11,000 was spent, and it was just strictly on design. And I'm trying to see what options they're coming back with us. I have a meeting set up with RGB to run through that. The holes that were in the back, I've got those on key to be filled. The town is coming by with asphalt for us, and my guys will repair the holes that are there currently, but it does need to be addressed, the whole
Right.
parking lot as a whole.
Yeah, Tony?
If I could just make a comment on this. I know this particular issue, the 250 budget was to do that back section. But at the previous budget facilities meetings, when Tom had read these reports, the size and scope of the project kept shifting and getting bigger, et cetera, and we were exceeding the 250,000. So it was deferred to the 5-year review that's going on and just maintaining, because that whole back area was under question. So it was just escalating, and we wanted to see it in its entirety. So we won't be spending this kind of money. That's why what Frank's talking about is patch and repair and get a design or a couple of designs from some of the money, and then we'll bring that up in the next conversation in the next couple of 3 months.
So do we have any estimate when that asphalt will be replaced?
Within the next day or so.
Replaced?
The
No, I don't want
No,
that.
are you talking about the holes or the
Yeah,
asphalt
no,
as a whole?
no.
The entire, we don't have we
No.
need a new design for the entire replacement. So that will be in the new 5-year plan.
How long in the new 5-year plan?
I
mean,
don't know,
if
I've
you-
never seen it. We should get the first draft of it.
Those of us that went up to that school and saw that asphalt back there, we're wondering how we're letting kids go out there on that asphalt. That's the first thing.
And this is something that we've been talking
years.
about for years. I mean,
Yes.
I've been here 8 years, and we've been
dangerous.
talking
Some of
about
you
it
were
since
new
the
here, but-
beginning. So,
Well, with all due respect, that wasn't supposed to be a road. That was supposed to be an access for emergency
Emergency
vehicles. It was
vehicles.
designed that way, and it was built that way. And now that the powers that be have elected to use it as a road, there is no question but that we have to decide, number one, do we want to make it a road, or do we want to keep it an access road for emergency vehicles? We want to make it a bus road. What is it that we want to do with it? So I appreciate the fact that we're still at the study phase, because nobody did anything wrong. It wasn't designed for traffic.
Okay.
So that's why it started breaking down, I'm going to say at least 5 years ago.
but it wasn't used for driving on. This came with COVID, that it was a drop-off route.
Well, they changed it so people are driving on it now.
Right, but it was falling apart long before that.
I know
truly.
that, but we knew that, and they were supposed to shore up the sides, but they weren't going to make it a whole new road.
I think if that's what Tony was talking about when Tom looked at it, the scope got bigger, because you're right, before it needed repair. It needed repair, and then COVID happened and they started using it as a road, and that's why the scope got bigger, because it destroyed it even more. So yes, you're right, it needed work before, but it got worse when we started using it as a real road when it was never supposed to be a road. So that's why Tom held back on it, because the scope got so much bigger. Now there's so much more damage from letting cars go
And
back
then
there.
not only the damage itself physically, but the use of it. if you're going to roll it back to the way it was 10 years ago, or are you in fact going to sustain some kind of road trip? Those are the kinds of public conversations that need to take place. That's why we're having the 5-year plan design. They will have outreach to community because you can build consensus and understanding of how does the community really want that piece of property to function. Then you'll be able to move forward. So to your point, Victor, February 1st is the first date of the application that has to go to RIDE. Between now and Christmas, the bulk of the outreach to the community and you folks as well. So by Christmas, we should have a pretty good idea of what the timeline is off of that particular issue.
Yeah, I don't have any children up there, but Erin does. And I don't, Erin, did they use that for kids out there, or is it just?
Yeah.
When we went up there on a
That's
tour,
recess.
the people were really upset with the condition of that because the kids go out there and it was dangerous. So now we're talking 4 years ago.
No, more than that. It's
Right.
been
We're
not good
talking-
for more
You know,
than
so I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
it's going on and on and on. And I know you people are new to this, but we wanted it to be done 4 years ago. And it still hasn't been done. And now we're going to go with a 5-year plan, and who knows when it's going to be. I won't be here, but I'll check to see if it's happening. Thank you.
And that's
Nikki, you
fine.
had a question.
No, my comment was about the Hucol,
Well,
the
I know,
Hucol
I
paving,
mean,
because
we've
it's an
talked-
issue of child safety at this point.
Yeah, no,
With
we've
the
talked
I-
about it, and I've seen it.
But the patching sounds like, as long as, because as long as the patching is being done where the children play as well as just where the
Well,
cars.
that was one thing that I'm hoping that comes out of the design too. I was wondering if the idea would be entertained of removing the asphalt altogether and maybe repurposing with either turf back in or a rubberized area, or, I mean, it'd be even cheaper than the asphalt itself. The amount of asphalt that would have to go down to complete that is massive.
Well, I think that's the point, and that's
Yeah.
why the discussion has to be had.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I know in the original plan, we had to have that access road.
Yeah, Colin told me that,
and-
yeah.
I can't pretend to remember why, but we had to have it there. Do we still need to have it, or don't we? If we do we want children playing on it and cars on it, or not? Those are the public kinds of discussions that we're talking about, and sometimes it's very frustrating to get anything done yesterday or even tomorrow. So,
Can I ask one more question
Yeah.
on that? So in that design phase, are there parents and staff at the school who are involved in that process?
So it's a layered process. So, right, we met with the team that's going to go out and meet. They've met with the principals and walk through. Now they're going to join the school's faculty meetings. We're getting ready to schedule that out. So they'll meet with staff, and then we'll set up community meetings to meet with parents, community, anyone who wants to join. So there'll be both sets. And then the architects also, you bring their expertise to, like, do you have to have an access road back here? And if we do, what does that look like? If we don't want that to be part of the play area, how do we make sure it's separated and there's a way for kids to get from one area to the other? Now I feel like it just all spills into one. There's not really a designated play area and a road, just a bunch of cement and then grass. So,
Yeah.
so how do we make that both what it needs to be? Like, we may have to have an access road that goes behind the building for emergencies, which I think is probably true.
Code.
But how do we separate that from the play area and create a safe play area, which is either grass or a rubberized playground? So they will help us with what's best practice and requirements, and they'll bring examples so that folks that aren't just saying, oh, we'd like this, we'd like that, but they'll have some things they can look at that are appropriate for the area and what's required in terms of safety.
That's
As a-
great.
as a
I just feel like with the amount of time it's taken and this direction we're going in, it seems like there are a lot of great possibilities where
Oh.
there could be a road and, a rubber surface play
absolutely.
area interconnecting. And I feel like with everyone kind of putting their heads together,
There's
It's a
definite
good
options. I mean,
opportunity.
And to your point, yeah, absolutely. There's got to be a way to separate that road from,
Well,
because
when
it
the
is
ar-
an access road for emergency services.
yeah, and the kids
And it
play
shouldn't be
behind that.
traveled
It's
by
not,
regular
it
traffic.
wouldn't be, that wouldn't be a conflict. It's just about,
Yeah.
making sure they're even, they're what do you?
Regraded.
They meet.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Everything's graded even.
Graded, yes, thank you.
I have to admit, I don't remember the particulars. I just simply remember that that was
No,
an
it's
access road. So
absolutely
you're right,
correct.
we need to all do that. And one of the things, remember the architect was here in June, and we asked the architect to come back. Superintendent Riley wasn't here, but we wanted to know where they were going. So we need to, in answer to all of your questions, we need to have them back. Like I said, I would have them back
Mhm.
so that we could look at some of those things that we're talking about here, because there are lots of other things just like this that we've been talking about. So I'll leave that up to the superintendent to let me know when she wants to schedule that. Okay?
Yep, I
Yes,
think they
Carly.
might want to have done some of the community sessions, and you'll all be invited to the community session.
Yeah, no,
so-
I don't disagree with you. I'm just
they'll come
saying
back to
that
the
where I
committee.
didn't forget, when I invited them, I didn't forget that they need to come
Yes.
back. But it really is you telling us when you're ready to have them come back.
You got it.
Yes, Carly?
We just have a lot of local talent as well. I know there's some nonprofits that are part of our community too, that are involved in outdoor learning spaces, and we have a lot of families that are landscape architects. So it'll be a really great opportunity to kind of have a meeting of all of those minds and create something really awesome. I love the idea that the rubberized surface is cheaper than asphalt. That's great, and it's usually recycled too, which is
Yes.
another benefit.
It's always recycled.
Hey, how about that?
The other point I have is, I do have kids at Colt Andrews. And we did put turf at Colt Andrews. And there was a major discussion, just like this right here, at the time as to what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, that kind of stuff. And I am glad that we did it that way rather than put asphalt there. So,
You're welcome, Mr. Cabral. You're welcome, Mr. Cabral.
yeah, I was the only one against it, let's put it that way.
No, you weren't.
That's
You
pretty
may
much.
have fought me on it, just saying.
I think I did too.
The background is, it was a historic issue on that one.
I was all for it.
Thanks, Erin.
I voted for it afterwards.
Anybody else want to take credit for anything?
I would like to acknowledge that Frank started about, 4 weeks ago at the busiest time of the school year and has already gotten his arms around all of this. It's impressive. And I think if we're going to acknowledge people's amazingness, we should take a moment to acknowledge Frank's at this point. So thank you.
Don't congratulate me yet. I got a lot of work ahead of me.
But he's had an evacuation, let's see, a gas leak, a flood in
Flooding.
front, the first set of flooding that I've been here for from Gutierrez, and he hasn't run away screaming, so I'm going to take that as a positive.
We know where you came from.
We all know about the
I've had
flooding.
my disasters before, but other
Thank-
than
don't
that,
tweet
that's
that.
pretty much all the primaries. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
thank you. The next thing, any more questions?
No.
That was good, Carly. The next thing under the agenda is the approval of policy BCA, School Committee Code of Ethics, second reading. I need a motion.
Motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of policy BDA, regular school committee meetings, second reading. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of policy JIC, Code of Conduct, first reading. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I need a second. I need discussion.
So I did attach for your information at the request from the last meeting, the portions of the code of conduct from each of the handbooks, because I think that was what folks thought was missing. This is also the updated version of this policy. The last time you had a previous version that spoke to specific programs that was, using the language of restorative justice. So that was not in the final edit. So somehow you got the wrong copy last time. So this is the correct copy, and happy to take any edits, recommendations, suggestions, or questions.
I'm having a hard time hearing everybody from that end of the aisle. Huh?
I just told them that we can't hear that side of the room, so you guys can speak right into the microphone. Sorry.
Okay, as I have something to say because as I let the superintendent know, actually I sent it yesterday, but I don't expect her to see it until Monday. I'll get to the smaller question, the quicker question first, which you gave us the codes of conduct for the elementaries, the middle school, and the high school. And the reason I brought up clothing is because that's in the elementary school code of conduct. I wanted you to know that that wasn't because, I know it's another agenda, but under it, it has a dress code in the elementary student conduct folder. And it starts on the first page. And that's why I mentioned it when I sent you the email. It's on the very front page of the elementary, and I didn't think it was supposed to be there. I
Yeah,
know
it's probably
another-
just mislabeled, so everyone has a section on bullying, lunchtime behavior, dress code in their handbooks, and I just only cut the codes of conduct piece out, but for the elementary, they sent me this all as one, so I just gave you the whole thing. But I can help them, this is just labeling, it doesn't belong there, that label can just go where
Yeah,
their
that's what I was
matrix
talking about.
is. Yeah,
That's
so
what
it's
I
just,
was
I
referring
didn't
to.
copy paste this one, I just sent you the whole thing they sent me. But everyone does address all of those things in the rest of their student handbooks.
All
I
right,
just
and
copied
the
and
other,
pasted them
the
for
other
you.
issue that I had was with the policy itself is that I don't think that we should be putting in our policy, I don't think we should be telling parents and guardians what to do. And I'm worried about putting what we will do, because if we don't do one of those, we effectively haven't done any of them. So I like the words creative, positive culture. But I think that can be melded into any one of these other paragraphs. I just don't like policies that tell parents what to do. And I don't like it when we get so wrapped up in what we're going to do that if we miss one step, we're in trouble. So I like the policy other than that, but I'm not sure how we defend ourselves with all of these other words that are in here.
What, I'm sorry, Marge, can you tell me what section you're talking about? Like if we don't do all of what things?
Does this sentence need to be here? This document is designed to guide teachers and administrators in creating safe and supportive learning environments that build positive relationships and foster progressive disciplinary approaches. What does that mean?
I'm sorry, Marge, could you let us know where you're at? I'm having a difficult time.
On the second page of JFC.
GFC.
Or I understand that there are some things that we have to do for Title I schools. And I understand, I don't know if that extends to all the schools. I know in the discussion that we had at policy, we talked about extending it to all the schools because we liked the idea of what those were.
Mhm.
But I don't like to tell parents things they have to do.
So you're talking about on the first page, the family partnerships to support
What?
behavior management on
All
the first page?
BW RSD parents and guardians should.
Oh, you're
That's the
talking about the old
That's the
policy,
old
Marge?
one.
You asked for the old one, so I gave you a copy of the
Yeah.
old one.
I had a feeling.
So
That's the old one.
that is the old one.
Okay, that's my.
The
So
new
I have
one
one
has
at
the
JS.
title that says draft policy to replace current policy. So you're reading that right off the old one.
Yeah, okay, so, all right, so I'm moving to,
JIC.
That's
I don't
okay.
like that either. I don't like the family partnerships part. And I don't like all student discipline should be progressive in nature. I think we're we're setting ourselves up.
Setting our, can you explain what you mean by setting ourselves up? I'm not understanding where you're going.
Well, less is better, in my estimation. When you come to school, you need to behave and follow the rules. Now, maybe that sounds a little old school, and I am obviously oversimplifying it, but I don't need all the other language to say you need to come to school, you need to be on time, you need to be dressed appropriately, you need to be ready to learn. Students know that, and I don't like the idea of all this other stuff in here. Because if I don't do it, and a parent says to me, well, you can't say to my child that they have to do this because you didn't do this, and I can't prove that I did that, then where am I left?
I guess I'm confused because the last time we met, one of the issues you had with this policy was that there wasn't enough detail in some instances. So I guess I'm having a hard time seeing where the disconnect is. I see that, I guess I'm sorry, Marge, is there a different way that you could explain?
Yes, when I was talking about detail, I was talking about you have a consequence for a behavior. And last time we talked, I wanted to see what the consequences were for the behaviors. And that's why the superintendent gave us the handbook slots on code of conduct so we could see what that was. And she also gave us the matrix. But I don't think that in the base of I see you, I just gonna finish that. I don't see where in the base of a code of conduct policy that we need to get so involved in what we don't need to be involved in. And that's my opinion. So, if you say, you have here, for example, all student discipline should be progressive in nature, i.e. a student's first violation should merit a lighter penalty than subsequent violations. So the first time I get caught with pot, I'm not going to have anything happen to me. But the second time I get caught.
No. The first time you get caught with pot, there are consequences in the level. That may be a suspension. It may be assignment to drug counseling. Maybe the second time you may be expelled from school. It just says they're progressive. It doesn't say you start with a verbal
But it
warning.
does say, i.e. a student's
But what I'm
first
saying is,
violation.
yeah,
Like, maybe
the
that should be
IE doesn't
taken
need to
out.
be there.
Okay.
A student's first
Should merit a
violation.
lighter penalty.
Okay.
I don't disagree with progressive in nature. I disagree with all the extras. I just disagree with all the extras.
That's fine. Just remove the parens. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yeah,
That's fine. That's a
And
simple
then,
edit.
and then I don't like the rest of it either. So that's, I don't like the student's age, developmental level, nature of the offense, student's prior disciplinary record, all of this stuff, which is, no. Other extenuating circumstances. What are the other extenuating circumstances? I mean, you either did or you didn't. Nikki, I'm sorry. I'll let you talk.
I was just going to say, I like it because I think it talks to all of the things we discussed, which is giving building principals a sort of high-level culture guidance as to how they should run their buildings, and you providing the actual codes of conduct alongside it gets into the specifics. And the different levels. My only comment would be, and this is not about the policy, so I apologize, that I would love to see some uniformity in how the codes of conduct are presented. I think as parents move through the district, it would be helpful if they're sort of used to seeing a way that this is
I think that's
presented.
true for all the handbooks, so that's
Right.
something we can work
Perfect.
towards in the next.
But
But
I
as
think-
I was reviewing them, I thought the same thing, that each handbook
Yeah.
looks very different, and we can work on making them a little bit more consistent.
But I think as a policy, especially now that we know what the specifics that back it up,
Mhm.
I think it allows teachers and principals, it provides them the guidance that they need and the framework that they need to keep them safe as well as the students safe and learning. Yeah, so I approve, I like it very much, and thank you for providing the extra paperwork, the extra documentation.
Carly, before
I
I
think
hog the
Sheila
microphone.
I think Sheila had her hand up.
Oh, well, I was
You can
just
go,
going to
Carly.
say,
Or whoever.
Okay.
I have questions after.
I was also going to echo what Mrs. Piper was saying. I really like it. I think as she was saying, it sets norms of kind of what we expect when you walk into the building. It also uses terminology that I think we want our children to use. To me, that seems uniform. And you're setting the norm again as sort of like, it says partnership. So I think knowing that you're sending your child to school and the teachers and the parents and the children are all kind of part of a team that's necessary for children to be successful is actually a really, really strong way to open a policy. And I don't feel that you're telling parents what to do per se. You're, again, letting them know what to expect.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that because I know what I'm supposed to do as a parent. And I don't think that we need to put what we think you should do as a parent in a policy. I think that you can take that out and the policy is still a very strong policy on code of conduct. And that's just what I think, and now I'll turn to Sheila.
Oh, thanks. So I'm just confused, so it says it is important for schools to establish and promote a positive climate with emphasis on mutual respect, self-control, good attendance, order and organization, and proper security as required by the Rhode Island DEP. What's order? Like, what do you guys define as order?
So you want a definition of order for the
No,
district?
but it just doesn't, I don't know why that would be there, I guess. It just feel like it's so
So remember
wordy.
that I don't make these up. These are model policies that come from the national organization. And so order and organization, as I see that, is when you walk into a school, it's orderly. Kids are moving in an orderly fashion. Kids know how to come to the cafeteria and get their lunch and sit down appropriately. Kids know how to change from one class. There's an orderly, I think that at least maybe it's this my school lens, but being a teacher, a principal, a student in a school, you know what it means to be orderly. You can tell when a school's not orderly, certainly when
Well,
you're.
as a parent, I kind of was like, I didn't really know, like orderly. Like I was like, I just don't. I mean, I just think that wording.
Do you think it needs more definition? Like what came to your mind when you
I was
read
like,
that?
what's order? Like order, a good attendance, order, and organization. Like I get the organization, but it's the order kind of just, I don't get it.
Could you call it system, like systems, or, I mean, because I think it's kind of.
I mean, I'm not.
I don't have a problem removing it. I'm just wanted you to know I don't author these.
Yeah,
They
like
come
I just
from
thought
model
that was
policies.
odd. And then the other thing, if someone could explain under the parents' relationship, it says reinforce lessons both in academic domain and social emotional behavior domains. Now I'm looking at that obviously as a parent. What is that? What is that expectation from the district when that's written down?
So as you know, we're piloting a social emotional curriculum. So kids will bring things home. We're working on kindness this month. So how can you reinforce that at home? When you see your child doing it at home, you could say, hey, that's another example of kindness. So
I
we're just
think on
asking.
elementary level, definitely, but on
K to
middle-
8, we're doing the second steps.
But middle school and high school, like they don't, I don't know. You ask my kids what they did and they say nothing. Did you have a good day? What'd you do? Nothing.
They're normal kids.
Oh, I'm glad you made it all the way to middle school and that started happening.
And high
That's-
school.
that's
They're
not
normal.
what
Like,
happens
I
for
just
everyone.
think that reinforced lessons, a lot of the times, like parents either don't have the bandwidth or don't, I mean, that's, I have a problem with that one. And then the other thing I have a problem with, it says the certified staff assumes the supervisory role of parent guardian to the students.
That's the, in parentheses, loca, that's the law.
That's the what?
That's the law.
Yeah, local printing.
That's the law.
Local parentheses, yeah, in school, the parent, when your child is
In
in
place.
school, the teacher steps in the role of the parent in the school. In local parentheses.
That's a law.
God. And then the other one is the student's first violation should merit a lighter. That was the.
Yep, so we struck that parenthesis.
But then I go to the third page and I want to know why the third page is there, except for the last paragraph about social emotional screenings and supports. Relationship building and problem solving practices should not be a part of our policy. It should be something that the principal discusses with parents at a PTA meeting or or at a sit meeting or whatever it is that they're going to do. But putting it in the policy means that every single time you do this, you're going to ask all these questions.
Well, it says these conversations often include questions such as.
Yeah,
I
but-
guess I'm just going to point you to the fact that when you hired me, you said we needed a culture change here.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, I got that message from the committee.
I'm just playing.
And so
And
this
we do.
policy is pushing at helping everyone to use the same lens when we look at the work that they're
I
doing.
apologize
That's really
for
what
saying
I'm
what I
trying to
said.
get at.
I apologize for saying what I said. I really
I also
do.
think it's important to note that this is in alignment with the culture part of the strategic plan, which we all agreed on as a committee, right?
I know that it is, but I still know that less is more. And we've been nailed before
But if
for
you're
not
so
having
confident.
done things that we said we would do. And I don't want to have any sort of gray area that could be misinterpreted. And I think that it's standard and straightforward, and in about 5 minutes, I can make it that.
It doesn't
Yeah.
say.
Go ahead, Vic, and then Aaron.
On the
Yes, sir.
elementary student conduct.
Yep.
Page, first page. Now, I have to tell you that before I make my statement, I agree with it, except for in our culture today, it's a word down in the, where it says dress code. There's one word that you should take out or change to another word.
Oh, I have a whole issue with dress code, period. We'll do that for another day, though.
This is
That's-
another, I was going to say, this is another thing you need to tell.
Well, my issue is the word GIRLS.
Where are you? Oh, it's spelled wrong, is that what you're saying?
No, it says,
Where you are.
children participating in physical education need to wear sneakers, and girls are encouraged to avoid wearing dresses or skirts on PE days. What happens to the boy that comes in with the skirt?
It should say children, I underline.
Yeah,
Right,
students, actually.
students, children, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we haven't touched the handbooks. I mentioned that to you before. That's something that should have come
Yeah.
to you in the spring. And dress code policy is its own policy. And I agree, I have lots of questions about it. As the mother of 3 girls and 3 boys, I've had many of these debates. And we actually did a lot of work on this in my previous district around dress code and it being equitable across, regardless if you're a young man or a young woman, that it looks equitable. Because many dress codes really target girls. And so I have some issue with the one we have, but we'll get there. That one's still further down our list.
And my other
policies.
comment is, of the several people in this room who have been disciplinarians, we know that there are always extenuating circumstances.
Mhm.
And we also know that it comes down to whoever is beating out the discipline as to how they approach the situation.
Of course. We're trying to set a standard, and I think we have a good team, and they can meet they certainly can meet the standard.
Okay. So I just had a thought when we were discussing this. And one of the things that came to mind is that I almost feel like this is the student code of conduct expectations policy. In a way, like, to me, this is set up like, what do we expect? Like, under family partnerships, we're just saying, we hope you will support us in the following ways, right? We hope you will reinforce these lessons and convey a supportive attitude. And then on the next page, it just feels like, we talk about, let's see, on the last page, they allow each member of the school community to develop and implement a school's adopted core values. And then underneath, it's kind of like, this is how you can help us reinforce these core values at school, at home, so that we're all these kind of partners in your child's education. But it's not, it feels more like a policy to me of expectations, which I don't know if that takes pressure off how certain people are feeling about.
No, that's exactly how I feel. There are lots of expectations in here. None of them are bad. They're all good. They're all reasonable. but
But
I
I-
don't think they belong here.
But I wonder if one of the reasons we're kind of jammed up is because we're talking about it as a code of conduct policy, but it seems to me to be more maybe a policy of expectations of behaviors. I mean, do you know what I mean? In terms of the way the last code of conduct policy read was so very different.
Right, so we talked about that at the last meeting. What you had before was actually the code of conduct.
Right.
Versus a policy on code of conduct. So this is a policy on code of conduct. I'm just looking at what the NSBA calls it, because sometimes they call it something different from what we do, and I don't always change the naming because it's something you're comfortable with, and I don't, if it seems appropriate, I don't change it, but let's see what the NSBA calls JIC. So they call it a system-wide student code of conduct policy. That's the national naming of it. Code of conduct policy. So it's not dissimilar from what we have.
So Mary Ann's gonna look at like the wording for that, the certified staff assumes a supervisory role of parent guardian.
Can you tell me what
students.
page that's on? I just want to underline it.
In local parental sports, that is that teachers.
No, just tell me what page. I
The
don't.
second, oh,
Thank
sorry,
you.
the second page is district-wide behavior management.
Gotcha.
It's that second paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
She's gonna look to see what the law says and write, and it should say whatever that law says, that verb, that little paragraph. To make sure that it's captured correctly.
Okay. Yep.
Because if it's the law, it should say what the law is.
That's
reading.
fine. Yeah, we can absolutely do that. So I just wanted to see if I captured all of the recommended edits so far tonight. That's why I'm sorry. I'm trying to like stick with the page so I can write this down. So on the first page, I'm going to remove the order and, so it'll say good attendance, organization, and proper, so no one's confused about that.
I don't have a problem with order. I don't know if we want to talk more about
Yeah,
that.
I don't want that order. I think it's confusing.
To me, it
doesn't-
makes
It's like a
it-
run-on sentence.
Yeah, to me, it makes perfect sense because you're talking about self-control, good attendance, like schools are all about order, like lines in the hallways, keep your voices down. I think it's a good expectation. So I would prefer, and we can of course all, casually vote on it, but to not have that taken out or to just have it reworded if
So you
that
know what,
particular word
I think that
bothers
comes
a
from the
member.
BEP. Let me see if that's the exact language of the BEP versus the model policy, so I can take a look at that. So that'll be my bit of homework. Because remember, it's just the first read. We can make some edits and bring it back. So I'll look in the BEP, Sheila, and see if this language comes right from there.
Okay, thanks.
So I'll do that for that first section. Then on page 2,
Oh, can you do the reinforcement lessons, that one? I think that should,
okay, let me
Again,
think
I'm
about
fine
how
with
I
this
can
one. I don't know if
reword
we
that
should-
one.
But
I like the
but
idea
I
of
think
parents
we have to have the
reinforcing.
conversation though about like
Yeah,
how
no,
many
no.
people want these things.
No, I
changed.
just want to put some extra edits in there, and then you can debate
Okay.
the edits, but like right now, we only have the one
Okay.
thing in here, so I'll rewrite that, so it's a little bit better
I just think the
defined for
parents'
what we expect the
expectations
parents.
need to be broader and not, I don't know, I just think.
Yeah, and
it's
again,
too-
these aren't, I know you're using the word expectations, but this is, we're partners, and here's how you can help us. It's not saying parents, you must A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like, I'm not going to anyone's house to track this.
Well,
Th-
that
This
one-
is
that
just,
one kinda
how
does,
can we be
though.
partners and help each other? These are the things you could do to partner and help us.
But I feel like that last one doesn't convey that.
Reinforce lessons in the academic domain and social emotion. Well, people might be confused about the word domain. Let me think about, I'll suggest an edit below that, and you can see if you like it better than this, or if we like that one better.
Superintendent Riley,
Yes.
this is really picky, but this sort of shows me how I feel about this policy. The first sentence in this policy is 4 lines long.
The
Marge, can you
first.
repeat that? I'm sorry. I'm happy.
I have to breathe before I finish the sentence
Okay.
because it's 4 lines long.
Which one? I think it's
Bristol
fine.
Warren Regional School District is committed to providing a safe and orderly school environment where every student is educated in a climate in which they are welcomed, valued, and supported in reaching their full potential and encouraged to grow in self-discipline across academic, social, and personal domains.
Okay,
that's
again,
what
I'm
I
going
was
to say I'm not the author of this policy, but I have an awesome
And I don't
grammar guru
mean to be
who
so-
will make that up for me. Lisa's really good at fixing those, so I'll have her,
I don't mean to be so picky.
nope,
This
but
is
we'll
just like
fix it.
Diving into the
Yep.
picky stuff.
All right, anything else on page 1?
Well, I don't like family partnerships, so that's.
You don't like the what?
The whole thing.
Page 2. I have a little, Mary Ann, you have your one job, but looking at the, yep. I'm just going to write Mary Ann on that one to remind myself. And then I'm going to take out the parens. Okay. And then that's it for what I have for edits.
I have a point.
You have some more?
No, I have a statement.
Okay.
If this gets approved,
Mhm.
can we also put in it that it should be reviewed at the end of the year to see how successful it was? And meaning, look at it again and decide as to, you know. Because right now, you can see there's a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Right? We may approve something just because 4 people decide that that would be the thing.
Yep.
It may not be the thing. So I'm just saying, I mean, could we put in there somewhere that it will be looked at again at the end of the year?
Well, I think we can ask the policy subcommittee to put it back on the cycle. I mean, I'll be honest with you, because this isn't my first rodeo. I'm going to have 3 new members. There may be a lot of policies we'll be looking at again. So I'm happy to put this on the list to review again at policy subcommittee. And you know what? When we redo the handbooks, we may want to look at this to make sure the handbooks and the policy are aligned anyway. So it probably makes sense if we're going to look at dress code policy, the bus policy. There are quite a few other policies that tie into handbook. So we may want to look at that again when we pull the handbooks together. So that it makes appropriate
I
sense.
just think Aaron made a good point in that a lot of the stuff that's in here should be in the handbook and not in the policy, because one of the things we ask parents to do is read and sign the handbook with their students. So they're not going to read a policy in our book, but they're going to read what's in the handbook, because if they don't, they're at their own peril for not having read it.
And they,
So-
all the schools do include a link to the policy in their handbooks, because we don't send handbooks home anymore. They're all online, so there are links to all of our policies. If you look at the high schools,
We
they
don't give them
actually,
paper copies anymore?
no.
Okay.
I also, I was just gonna, just to follow up what Marge just said. Marge, I know what you mean, but I wasn't so much saying these should be in the handbook. I was just saying, I wonder if we just need to kind of look at it in a different way than how we were looking at the last code of conduct policy. Because it seems really.
You're right, I'm sorry.
No, and that's okay, because I knew what you meant, but my point was just more that I feel like this policy is really like a light policy. Like, I'm wondering why, it just feels like we're making it so heavy. And I'm not trying to disparage anyone but it just feels like there's really like no consequences in it. It's just kind of like, hey, we hope we can all be partners, you know? And I'm wondering why it just feels so much heavier than it seems to me. That's all. But I think the heaviness and the real weight lies in the handbooks and those specific policies on like dangerous weapons and et cetera, to be. Anyway.
Madam Chair, if I want to add, we're not voting on a discipline code that's a handbook tonight.
Right.
That's a meeting, Superintendent Riley, that's for another meeting, another night. You just put that in to show them that there was certain disciplinary actions taken in elementary, middle school,
Right.
high school.
Correct.
And so this committee never voted on those handbooks, which we used to do in the past for some reason.
Right, but it got lost, and
It got lost.
I'm not gonna, we're looking forward on everything these days.
No, last year we did,
We
but
did.
not this year.
And we didn't vote on addressable, and we didn't vote on any of those things, and those things that you definitely need to look at going forward. But, we can make changes, it's not.
I'll just say again, I think less is better and more is better in the handbook. That's all.
Can we vote on that?
Yes, we are voting on the first reading of this.
Is this what we're voting on, just this page right here, JIC?
You're voting on this one, the one that has the
Yes, JIC.
draft policy to replace
JIC.
current policy. It's JIC.
Not the code of conduct, none of this
No,
other
no,
stuff?
no, no,
All
no.
we're voting on.
Only you're
is this
voting
little
on
piece of paper right here.
JIC, correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the rest is handbook stuff, so we'll bring that back.
So moved.
Oh, we already have a motion and a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, my error. Move the topic. How's that?
Huh?
Move the topic.
So now
You
we
can't do that. I'll move the top. I'll ask for the vote. You can't do that without a two-thirds vote. So-
I can get the two-thirds vote.
I know you can. I have a
Already got a
question that,
motion to approve. It's first and a second, we're just voting now.
yes,
Right.
I mean, give me a chance here to put it on the table, Mr. Kumral.
Whatever you say, Chairman, Chairperson.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? No.
Who knows?
All right, 2 noes. The next thing on the agenda. What? Next thing on the agenda is the standardized monthly financial reports. The reason we have these things on the agenda this month is because we weren't able to have a budget subcommittee meeting, so we're covering them here. So, Mr. Ferrucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first up is our monthly general fund fiscal report through September 22nd. As I've indicated, it's been early into the school year. There's no significant variances that I need to report this evening. You can see the changes. If you got specific questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions? Then I need a motion to accept that.
So moved.
I need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
The
you.
ayes have it. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of the school physician bid award and contract.
So moved.
I thought we were doing each item. Sorry. We do it collectively? The whole thing? Okay, perfect.
Tony's still ready.
Look at the smile on that man's face.
You want to slow down?
Nope. Let me just get caught up.
That's what I was doing while I was talking over here.
Hit it.
I need a motion and a second for the school physician bid award and contract.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
So we have, Dr. Elder has reapplied for the physician for the district. We have not had any luck yet with the dentist. I'll just let you know that's why that's not on. We put it back out to the Rhode Island Dental Association. And so our partners at EBCAP also suggested sharing it with some of their connections. So we're hoping that by the next meeting, I'll have a recommendation for a dentist, but we are still struggling. So if anyone out there in the community knows a dentist, we have an open bid for a district dentist out there.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And the last thing on the agenda is the approval of the visitor management system. I need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
A discussion. I would like a little bit clearer view on what this.
Sure,
really
and this is something that someone from the budget subcommittee asked to move forward, and I did not have the opportunity to go over it at budget subcommittee, so I will do that for you now. So this is a system that I've actually used in my previous district. We have this system in Portsmouth. All it is when someone comes into the school, they present their ID, it goes into the system, and it scans it. All it does is a national scan for any sex offense. So that's it. It doesn't check. It's not a background check. It's not like when you get your BCI and anything could pop up on it. It's only a national, it comes from the National Sex Offenders Registry. So only if someone comes up on that list will it pop up. And then that will alert the principal, who will let the person know they can't come into the building. Other than that, it's really about safety and keeping an accounting of who's in the building. So if we have parent volunteers, they come in the morning, and once you've scanned, the next time it recognizes you, and it'll print a little thing with your photo on it. And so then it fades over the course of this. You can't rewear your badge. They have them at some hospitals now. You get the badge and then it fades. So they get their badge and it'll say, classroom volunteer. It can even be specific enough to say 4th grade classroom volunteer. So everyone in the school knows who the person is. They know why they're there. and they know that they've been vetted at the office. Also, if there's an emergency, there's a fire drill, an evacuation like we had a week ago, we can account for all the visitors that were in the building. So if there were 15 people checked into the visitor system, we need to account for those 15 people out at the fire drill, at the evacuation, or whatever it is. So it has more than a dual purpose than just, but it is a way for us to do a quick search of the national. The other thing it can do is pair with our student information system, so that if we have any court documents on custody or folks that are prohibited from picking up a student, that will pop up. And it's just really a reminder for the school secretary or whoever's doing it, just a reminder, this is not the custodial parent. So sometimes we have events at schools and kids, grandparents, parents want to take the kids home with them after that. If we have a non-custodial parent who's not supposed to do that, this will be an alert reminder for the staff at the front office not to allow that to happen. We have very few of those, but we want to make sure that we're following those court orders when they do exist. So it's really kind of got that dual purpose. We're doing a quick scan to make sure the person is safe to be in the building with children, and then it tracks visitors in the building, so you know where they are.
So it's left up to the parent or guardian to make sure that if the grandmother is allowed to pick them up, that they have notified the school.
Oh,
that
yes.
that's
They have it in their
I'm
contacts.
just making it so that everyone understands that they physically have to tell the school who's allowed to pick up the children.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. You have a question?
No, I have a question on that. I have a question on something else that we passed.
What does she want?
I don't know. First, let me finish this.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mrs. Ellsworth, you have a question?
So the FY '22 year-end budget update,
Yes?
can you just explain it?
Are you just trying to make him feel
We
better?
already passed it.
We made him feel so good.
Well, it's not his fault.
I'll jump to the conclusion. I'm sorry it took us until today to get the report out. If you haven't seen it, I just wanted to update the school committee that we were given a number of past due DCYF invoices for the whole school year. Just came to light within the last 7 to 10 days. And I reported out to the school committee that we were successfully able to cut into how much the fund balance was going to be used for the current school year, up to close last year. And I've indicated on the report, there's an excess of $300,000 of DCYF bills that have come in. We've reviewed it with our school attorney. It appears that the funds are going to be owed to DCYF. We're still trying to nail down any differences that may be between regular ed and special ed, but the number is pretty significant. And since it was such a deviation from what we reported in August, I wanted to advise the whole committee as soon as possible. And plus, we didn't have the finance committee that had this issue come to the light. So I'm providing that and happy to answer any questions. When these things happen, we keep you informed and keep you advise you as it goes along. So happy to answer the question.
Thank you. And I do want to add that Dr. Caldwell is still reviewing all of these. And so there even may be some more adjustments to some of these numbers as we
I
review.
just have a couple of comments. Sorry. So when Tony brought this up to me, my major concern is our internal processes of not having POs. We could have, done a accrual to make sure we have everything. And I know that there's a bunch of, it looks like there's other invoices that were in people's drawers or whatever. We need to change kind of that culture. And I know it's difficult to change. I had this conversation with Tony because this is so important that we get POs prior to services. The accounting office, the finance office doesn't know what all departments are doing all the time. So the PO process and financial integrity really depends on this. And it's $325,000 now, but what if it was more? We can't have it all lay on the finance department. We need to put processes in place to make sure that we don't have at the end of the year stuff in drawers or people just going and getting a service without entering the PO, because the PO process is not as quick as just asking for forgiveness later. The health of our financials really depends on this. It's so important. We've come so far, and I just really, really need the district to support the finance team because they don't know what else is out there. And I know this is, this was all inherited from, the whole team that's sitting there now, but this is the time to change it. And when I saw this, I was really disappointed because I felt like, we were cleaning up and I was like, oh, good, and could have been easily avoided with POs and with journal entry, with accruals, and we could have captured all this cost. So, it's just
Thank you very much. Yes, Nikki.
My question just was, do the DCYF payments not appear in our budget?
Right. So Lisa, can you just explain a little bit about how these happen? Because these aren't things that we plan for.
Okay, because I was just confused about why if we suddenly weren't spending anything in that line item, how we wouldn't have noticed.
Right.
Thank you for that.
So-
I didn't know how to ask that. Thank you.
I think it should be.
So what I can share with you as I've gone through the invoices is that, first of all, the department, DCYF, periodically may place a student in a residential setting. When that occurs, the district is asked to agree to, and this is all statutory, so the district is asked to agree to contribute the per pupil expenditure amount. For Bristol Warren, that number has ebbed, it looks like between $50,000 and say $70,000 per year per student over the course of the last 3 years. RIDE is the one who tells us what that per pupil expenditure is. For students that are placed in residential, you pay a daily rate. And when the district is notified that a student has been placed in residential, the district is actually asked to sign off. I have not found any of those sign-offs to date. That doesn't mean that we won't come up across them, but that doesn't mean that we will either. The department is the one who bills the district on a monthly basis. So the Department of Children, Youth, and Families is the one who bills us. We are able, and through my own past experiences, once we know or we're notified that a student is in residential placement and the district agrees to accept that financial responsibility, then in my past practice, we have always, to Ms. Ellsworth's indication, put in for a purchase order, and that would be funneled usually through our tuition line item. So that's usually where you will find DCYF placements. And it will go through that process. And when we get those invoices, we process them according to, against that particular requisition that's been processed. So the amounts for kids will ebb and flow only because not everybody goes into residential at the same time over the course of a fiscal year.
If I could just make one comment. You had asked the question about, did we not see it budgetarily? DCYF is placing the students, for instance, in Groden Center. And so our accounting system has it line up with Groden Center. So whether I'm paying RIDE for the DCYF placement or the Groden Center directly because the child's at Groden. So that's why it didn't pop to the surface to say, what are we not paying? Because we've been doing the report showing the tuition lines, and we were actually saving money. We thought we just didn't have students in the system. So that's why it didn't pop out. If it was its own specific line, then yes, we knew we had students. How come we're not paying DCYF? But it's where the student goes is the accounting for the student.
Okay, so when you said that we get invoiced monthly, it's not DCYF that invoices?
Yeah, so a few years ago, the department decided to use its statutory right to bill the districts directly. Previous to that, districts would be billed by the facility where the student was located. Groden is a little bit different because they actually have a group home. They're a group home, but the residential facilities that we're talking about are places like Harmony Hill, Meadow Ridge, Swansea Woods. There's lots of different ones, both in-state. Well, there's a few in-state. Most of them are out of state. that students might be referred to.
So were DCYF not sending monthly invoices? That's what I'm not understanding. Where were these monthly invoices going for the last 3 years?
So I can't answer that. I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that when I came, we had unpaid invoices for the entire year for fiscal year '22. And what I also know is that there was other invoices that were being held just in light of whatever reasons they were for being held. I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure that anybody does at this point. So I'm continuing to massage through the numbers with my assistant just to make sure that we have an accurate depiction of what it will look like in terms of verifying enrollment, verifying special ed status, verifying attendance. All of that needs to be done.
To answer the question, the invoices were held, that from what we can see, because there was communication that goes back over 2 years ago. Back over 2 years ago, there were legal proceedings with regards to what was being billed by DCYF, and the bills were excess of $100,000. There were special ed conversations about what rate we're supposed to use, et cetera. And it was email communication to the special ed director. This is, I believe, the third special ed director back to hold the bills until the legal status was determined. That turned into hold the bills, hold the bills, hold the bills. 3 generations later, you have somebody who uncovered it and has gone through that process and said, hey, wait a minute, we're supposed to be paying these bills because the legal has been cleared. So that's kind of the backdraft to the question of why it wasn't, because there was an initial direction, but then it didn't follow through with the next preceding 3 leaders you had in the office. So I appreciate Ms. Caldwell's uncovering it, and I think we'll work well together going forward on it, and I think she fully understands the implications of what we're faced with this evening. So I think the team is developed to become reliant on financial reports and data, et cetera.
Yes.
And Tony, if you had, just adding on to that, if you had known, you could have accrued it, or the person before you, before people go.
In my
should have
previous
accounted
districts, we
for
ran
it.
into the same legal issue, and what we were doing was posting it as a liability on our balance sheet as any, and in fact, what ends up happening, we do get annually from our auditors letters to our attorneys stating, are there any open liability issues that might trigger payouts? And these are the types of things that we're not paying the bill, we're holding it, it's being refuted, and here's accumulation of.
Right.
But my understanding is the legal prospects have been settled. That should have triggered, open up the floodgates and let's get the bills going.
Right, and I
that's
just want to
what
make
got
sure
lost.
we do the, the accounting principles, so we know where everything is, and we're not surprised at the end of the year, and we hold the integrity of the financials. By the processes we have with the POs, we have to keep that, because if we don't, it's going to be impossible for finance to keep up.
Yep.
Tony, the bottom number that you're giving us, that's actually for 3 years. I mean, it's like, it should have been paid each year, but now we'll pay me now or pay me later type of thing, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
I hope at some point the state funds DCYF appropriately.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. No.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. That was